Okay, so throughout the semester, you are going to see me diagramming form function trees. You're going to see these in your textbook, and you're going to have the option to earn points back on quizzes by sometimes doing form function trees of your own. Thus, I want to do a little bit of a refresher and tell you what I am interested in and what I'm not interested in. So the first thing that I think it's really important for you to know is that it doesn't need to be perfect, um, especially not according to the book. Okay. My primary interest is in your understanding of the basic form and the function of the words, right? That's what I want to make sure you're understanding, that there's a difference between the type of word and what it does in a sentence, right? Um, let's see. Type and what it does. Okay. That is what I'm interested in. Okay. This is what you're focusing on. I don't need everything to be exactly the way you would see it in the textbook. What I'm looking for is that you understand this. So I'm not testing your drawing capabilities or even your solid understanding of form function diagrams. What I'm using these to do is to assess your understanding of form and function. That also means that lines don't need to be standard. Okay. Um, I need to know what they connect. Okay. So that means that if, let's say, you need to draw like a line that goes in kind of a weird pattern, or you run out of space as you're writing and need to kind of draw down to the bottom, as long as I can follow the line, that is all that matters. So please do not draw these like a million times. I want to see your process. I want to see that you're thinking. I do not care about perfection, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I want to see thought and process and learning, not like visual perfection. So let's take a look at how to diagram and do an example together. So the sentence that we are going to look at is, at some point I dozed off while sitting on my at my vanity. I forgot the period, so I'm gonna add it. And you'll see that I've already started. So here is what I always do when I'm doing a form and function tree. So first I do it over here. One, write words, right? First step. Two, I draw lines, so the vertical lines. And then three, I underline each word. Okay. So that's where I always start. So that way I have the basics that I need. And I went ahead and did it so that we don't have to take the time to do that. So I start here because then that allows me to start assessing the form, right? So that's what goes up here, is the form of the words and distinguishing that from the function of the words. And I always end with the function because I need to understand all of the words and the sentence in order to determine what those functions are. So let's start. Okay. At is a preposition, so I'm going to write P. Okay. Some is an indefinite pronoun. Okay. And point is a noun. Okay. I'm going to keep going. I is a pronoun. Dozed is a verb. Off is a preposition. While is a subordinating conjunction. Okay. Sitting, while it's technically a verb, it would need was sitting or is sitting or are sitting or were sitting in order to be a finite verb. So what this means is that this is a participle, not a verb. At is once again a preposition. My is a possessive pronoun, and vanity is a noun. So then my next step is to ask myself what I know. If I have a noun or a pronoun of some sort, then I know I'm going to have a noun phrase. So I'm going to start there. Vanity is a noun. My is a possessive pronoun. So together I know that they're going to be a noun phrase. My next noun as I go through is my pronoun I. It's not preceded or followed by anything, so it's going to be a noun phrase on its own, right? And then I have point, which is another noun, and it's preceded by some and then a preposition. So some point is going to be another noun phrase, right? So I know those forms. So my trick is to start with what I know. Next, I know if I have a preposition, I'm going to have a prepositional phrase. So that's what I'm going to focus on next. At is a preposition. So at some point, then altogether would be a prepositional phrase. Off is a preposition. So it's going to be a prepositional phrase all by itself because it's not followed by a noun phrase, right? It's followed by while, which is a subordinating conjunction. And then at is another prepositional phrase, and that's followed by my vanity, a noun phrase. So that means that I have another prepositional phrase here, right? So slowly but surely, I'm starting to build these relationships between these forms of words that I understand. So I also have a participle. So if I have a participle, then that very likely means that I have a participle phrase. And so I am going to go ahead and mark that, right? So I am going to say that I have a participle phrase and that prepositional phrase is part of the participle phrase. Next, I'm going to look at the word while, which is a subordinating conjunction. And what subordinating conjunctions do is create dependency. So I then am going to identify this as a subordinating phrase. Okay. Um, because, right, while sitting at my vanity, it requires additional information to make it make sense. Next, I have off, which is a preposition, and it appears right after the verb dozed. I know that the verb dozed on its own is going to be a verb phrase. And I know that if I have a verb phrase, I'm going to have a predicate phrase. Okay. Um, so then I am going to assume that that prepositional phrase is going to come directly off the predicate phrase, and this is what I have. And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, even though while is a subordinating conjunction, I don't think this is a subordinating phrase. I'm actually going to erase that because what it's doing is it's telling me about when something is happening or like where something is happening, right? So I dozed off while sitting at my vanity. So that's where it's happening. So to me, then, this actually tells me that what I have here is an adverbial phrase. Okay. So very slowly but surely, I'm starting to identify these things. Now, if I have a predicate phrase, and I have a noun phrase that precedes it, then very likely I have a clause. And at some point seems to me to exist on its own. So I'm going to draw a third branch, right? So really what I'm doing or what I'm using these branches to do is to identify groups of words and how they're related to each other. What I'm mapping out here is definitely not exactly what your book would do. So All I'm interested in is that you have a basic understanding of these forms and the functions that we're about to talk about. So don't hesitate to just do your best, and please don't feel like you have to make it perfect. So then let's talk. We have this prepositional phrase at some point. It doesn't belong to the subject branch and it doesn't belong to the predicate branch as we have identified it. So what that means then is that it is indicating when something is happening. It's likely modifying the whole sentence. So that tells me that it is an adverbial complement. Okay. Some is a determiner. Point is a head word. Point is also the object of the preposition at, which means all of some point is the object of the preposition at. And then if we have an adverbial complement, then this whole prepositional phrase is also an adverbial complement. So what I'm doing is I'm identifying how each of the words function individually and then how the groups of words function together. I stands on its own, so I is a subject. Dozed stands on its own, so it is the predicate, right? Um, Off modifies that verb. So what we have here is an adverbial complement. Oh, and this makes me realize, so first off, I'm going to put AC under here to abbreviate it. And it makes me realize I was wrong before. At some point is not an adverbial complement because it exists in a branch on its own. It is an adverbial adjunct because it's non-essential, right? I could get rid of it and the sentence would still make sense. So this is an adverbial adjunct, not a complement, right? Off, I couldn't say at some point I dozed while sitting at my vanity, dozed off. That belongs to the word doze. So that's what makes it an adverbial complement. While is a connector, right? It's connecting sitting to the rest of the sentence. Sitting, in my mind, is modifying the verb dozed, right? Um, at my vanity. So sitting at strikes me as a prepositional verb combination. Like I can't replace, I couldn't say while sitting my vanity. I need that preposition. So that tells me that it's an adverbial complement, right? This one is just to a phrasal verb, and this one is to a prepositional verb. Okay. My is a determiner. Vanity is a head word. It is also the object of a preposition, as is the entirety of my vanity. And then at my vanity is altogether going to be an adverbial complement, right? So that outlines all of the functions that I understand to exist in the sentence. Now, again, I am interested in what you know, and what you saw as I was doing this was that I made mistakes, I erased them. Understanding certain things helped me to understand other aspects of the sentence better. Even when you see me writing like adverbial complement, right? I have phrasal verb, I have prepositional verb there. Let's say that you don't remember what it's called, but you know that it's a phrasal verb and that it's a prepositional verb. That's fine. Tell me what you know. I'm not concerned with you getting things 100% correct. I am interested in how you understand the words to be interacting with each other. And that means identifying their form, so what type they are, and their function, what they do. And those are the two things that I am the most interested in when you are diagramming.